All right, everybody, welcome along to the TexAgs High School Football Show. Another week in the books, another week ahead of us, about to get on the road. Jason Howell and DFW Ryan Brauninger here in College Station. I'll be back in my greater Houston mix this week. But, man, what a week it was across the state for some great Texas high school football. We always start with Jason, what he saw, what he liked, his big takeaways from the weekend in the Metroplex. Jason, it's getting to be really separation time in high school football, and I think this weekend was another separator, and we had a record-breaking night, at least in one game in DFW.
Well, I was joking when I said something about the over-under being 140 points with Rockwall Heath and Rockwall, but yeah, that wouldn't have been enough, man. They went over on that, and Heath pulled out the big win in Rockwall County. So that one was a highlight of the weekend here in the DFW area. Just a ton of offense and big plays on both sides. But I was in Arlington at Choctaw Stadium, which is one of my favorites. It's a baseball venue.
Right. I still not used to Choctaw Stadium. Like the ballpark in Arlington, I knew where you were at. When you said Choctaw Stadium, I'm thinking it's one of these old ISD stadiums that I haven't been to.
No, they rebranded it, I guess, this right before the season, and so yeah, I mean it's a beautiful venue, one of my favorites. I don't think the sight lines are as clean for everybody in the stands, but as a reporter on the sidelines, man, it doesn't get much better as far as just the beauty and the atmosphere. But Arlington Martin handled Arlington 65-17. They got out early. Javian Toviano was just we got him as one of the top 5 in the state, about to be a 5-star next time we talk about these things. Just got it done in every facet of the game. Forced a couple fumbles, wasn't really tried too much as a corner. Had a couple 2-point conversions when he comes in on offense. Had a big block to spring a kickoff return for a touchdown, and just an all-around great game. Tristan Biddle is a new guy for me, but a Texas A&M baseball commit, played receiver, quarterback, running back, 2024 kid. Just an all-around great athlete. Was a factor on special teams. He was phenomenal. Had a couple touchdowns, one receiving, and another one a quarterback keeper. And I got a hit on my sleeper from that game, Caleb Johnson. Man, he transitioned from running back to linebacker last fall and spent the last third of the season at linebacker. And this fall, he's picked up right where he left off. He played a little bit of safety, a linebacker, sideline to sideline guy, about 6 foot, 205, and he gets after it in that defense for Arlington Martin. Somebody's going to pick up a good ball player there.
Well, I got to take a trip a little bit east of Houston back to my old stomping grounds of Southeast Texas, hit a bunch of schools. I actually checked in with former Beaumont Westbrook head coach Eric Peavy, who is now at Little Cypress Mauriceville, and has already changed the culture, and they've really enjoyed my time visiting with him. He's got a 2023 sleeper on the D-line that just picked up a Baylor offer, who was a really impressive kid to meet in person. Gave me a little bit of a Justin Matabike vibe when you meet him, and how big and strong his hands were. And his name's Amir Washington, so that's a name to kind of file away if you see him start blowing up with offers. He's got some real juice.
That's a big-time comparison for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that he's the prospect, obviously, now that Matabike was, but just gave me that kind of vibe in terms of his body style. And like I said, just big, giant hands that engulf you. So that's a kid in Southeast Texas that's now on my radar, and be really interesting to see once that junior tape's done who else takes notice. But Baylor typically does a good job of getting on kids early in the offer process. The guys they like, they don't wait around to see more tape. It's like they see them and they go on them. And so I think that was a really good offer there by Dave Aranda and the Bears. But got to go to Beaumont Westbrook. And matter of fact, I hit in one day I hit every part of the Golden Triangle. So I started in Orange, then I went to Beaumont, then I went to Port Arthur Memorial, got to talk to Jalen Gilbo, who just committed to TCU. I think that's a really good get for Gary Patterson. I think that's a good fit for both parties there. And I think that he's going to find his way on the field very early. One of my personal favorite kids in this recruiting class. I've covered him for a while, so was really happy to see him and talk to him. Unfortunately, there at Port Arthur Memorial, 2023 offensive lineman Kaden Bowie suffered a knee injury last week. He's probably going to be done for the year, and we're seeing more of that, man. I feel like this year you're seeing some really key pieces to some big programs fall to injury. And I know just covering the A&M kids, we're kind of dealing with that as well. You know, with guys like Bobby Taylor and Jared Kerr, and Bryce Anderson's been out for a few weeks. So hopefully we're done dealing with the injury bug. You know, Noah Thomas was banged up early on. So hopefully we're done.
Jaden Scarlett,
yeah.
Last week, Ish Harris was out with a injury, illness kind of situation. So
hopefully we're getting over that. But Friday night I got treated to, in my opinion, and again, I'm very biased, the best rivalry in the state of Texas, Nederland P&G, and it was a classic. Nederland rallies they scored the final, I believe it was 21-7 at halftime. And then P&G goes up 28-14. Nederland scores the final 24 points of the game, including a game-sealing pick six by a defensive tackle on a screen pass, which was awesome to watch. And just
a little Brownie special.
The place went absolutely nuts. And it's funny enough, the kid that did it, actually, when I was, you know, he grew up around my family a little bit in Nederland. You know, it's a small town. Everybody's kind of intertwined.
Yeah.
Kid that did it was a kid that I'd known of for a long time, and just absolute bonkers, wild scenes. A huge brawl breaks out in the Nederland student section. There's baby powder bombs flying. There's streamers. I mean, just, you know, usually it's the student sections chanting back and forth at each other. You've been to games where the student sections go back and forth. This was the entire stands chanting back and forth at each other. It was a classic Mid-County Madness rivalry. Nederland wins. And I tell you what, kid that is way under offered down there is Kendon Fusilier at Nederland. Just a really solid playmaking kid on both sides of the ball. Just probably missing that elite burst and speed.
Yeah.
Had a 76-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. Had a late catch and run over the middle for a touchdown that put Nederland ahead for the first time in the game. Just an incredibly gifted player on both sides of the ball, could excel either way. He's got some FCS offers, but, man, I think some of these mid-majors, non-Power 5 in the state, really need to take a long look at him. So I enjoyed my time, got to see some family, obviously, back there in Southeast Texas, but really enjoyed my time covering high school football. It's really – I tell people all the time this, Jason, about the Golden Triangle, is that it's kind of down there by itself, right? You know, you got to drive from Houston. There's a long stretch of I-10 where there's nothing but rice fields until you get to Beaumont, right? So they take it – it's very personal. They've always taken their football very, very seriously down there because it's like all they've got. You know, that's the bragging rights amongst people in Southeast Texas is the high school football. So I really enjoy when I get to work games down there. But be back in Houston this week. Is there anything else? And we talked about Rockwall Heath in Dallas. Were there any other results that stood out to you?
That was the big one for me. You know, there were
everybody else was kind of chalk. I was looking at the rankings just a second ago, and Dallas is very, especially in 6A, Dallas is very well represented.
Had a big win over I think it was Paris. Melissa, that's one of those. You know, if you're not going to go chalk, that's a nice one there in that 4A range that could really make some noise. And they got a big one this week against Argyle. That may be my area game of the week. Just, you know, with both teams, very powerful and, you know, playmakers on both sides of the ball. There's some big time Division I talent on both of those teams that I think we'll be talking about for the next few years. But Melissa Argyle is going to be one to watch. And Melissa picked up a big win and have really started to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, they got really good players for the size of school. They're a very, very talented club. No question.
That I'll tell you what, I got to see their facilities for the first time last week. Holy geez, man. Those will stand up against, Allen and, any of
Right.
the big time programs around Texas, man. Great indoor facility. They're building a, football stadium.
Well, it's
Holy
become,
mackerel,
I
man.
know that Melissa has
Yeah.
become a really hot spot on the summer baseball circuit as well, that facility they've got built there in town. So
Yeah.
seems like that whole area may be on the come up. But, one score before I move to this week in Houston, one score that caught my eye, Fort Bend Hightower beats Manville. And that
Oh,
is,
yeah.
Fort Bend Hightower has been really good. That Coach Sam that, came up from DFW. Now he's back. Where's he at now? He left Fort Bend Hightower, and they're coached by former A&M linebacker Cornelius Anthony now. And they beat Manville in a close, tight game. And that was been a program that's been really on the cusp of coming through in that district.
Yeah.
So that result, they got good players. Caleb Douglas, wide receiver, going to USC, very good player. They got some underclass kids on the defensive line and the offensive backfield that are very talented. So look out for Fort Bend Hightower, very kind of behind the scenes, making a move up these 5A Division I rankings. I believe they come in at number 10 this week, the first time they've been ranked this year.
And Coach Sam's now at Bowie in Arlington.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, that was a big one for sure.
I know there's some big ones in Houston, so I'll start there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I will be at on Friday night, Katy versus Katy Tompkins. Undefeated, both clubs in the top 10. Katy Tompkins at number 7, Katy at number 2. Katy Tompkins coming off a close win, a surprisingly close win over Cinco Ranch, and Katy dominated Seven Lakes 45-3. If you go back to last year, I know last year was a little bit crazy because of COVID, but Katy won a state title, but they had one loss. Can you guess who the one loss was to, Jason?
I'm going to say Tompkins.
Yeah, it was to Katy Tompkins. And so that has become a big-time rivalry in that district that I know, just talking to Bobby Taylor, obviously he won't be able to play due to his hand surgery, but he was really looking forward to playing in. It's a rivalry that gets both sides going. Just what I've been able to see on social media so far this week seems like fans, students on both sides are really amped up for this one. So I'll be in attendance at Legacy Stadium down there Friday night at 6 o'clock. Katy and Katy Tompkins. And then there's another big one in Houston that I got to mention. Spring versus Spring Westfield. Both teams undefeated, 4-0. Spring Westfield ranked number 9 this week in Dave Campbell's top 25 in 6A. Spring number 11. Probably the best squads both schools have had. I don't know that Spring and Spring Westfield have both been this good at the same time, maybe ever. But if it has happened, it has been a while. So that's going to be a knockdown, drag out on the north side of Houston. I'll be very much paying attention to that score and what happens on the other side of that game because, somebody's got to lose, and perhaps the loser is going to come out and make a run like Katy did last year after they lost. But it seems like, the power struggle in Houston, we've talked about it so many weeks in a row on this show, the winner of that game is going to nudge their way toward the front of that group. So what do you got this week, Jason? Where are you going to be in DFW, and what are you watching?
I will be at Skyline Tyler Legacy, ready to check out some some Jordan Menard, defensive end 2023. They've had some hot and cold games. They gave Allen a nice run there in the first half for Allen separated there, but got plenty of playmakers with Jamarian Miller, and they know how to get it done on both sides of the ball. And Skyline, while they're down a little bit, they've been competitive in every game. So it should be a nice little matchup with some talent to watch, and excited to see Jordan Renard do his thing out there. And then I'll be watching, a lot of talk's been about Evan Stewart and, his recent declaration that, he's hanging him up this fall. But Frisco Liberty's been doing some work out there regardless of who's on the field. The quarterback, Keldrick Luster, has just been on the money. He is a gamer and definitely an up-and-coming prospect to watch. They take on Frisco this week, 2 high-powered offenses, 2 really good ball teams. It should be a fun one to watch. Geyer Prosper is another one. that I'll be keeping an eye on. That's always a strong game. Geyer again coming off a big win and just continues to roll. But Prosper, they always give those Wildcats a tough test. And then of course I mentioned Melissa Argyle, but if you're looking for a West Texas matchup, Odessa Permian, Wolford Friendship, lots of talent, a lot, and two big time programs out there, strong programs that are doing some work this fall. So should be a good one out there in West Texas.
I left off a game in Houston. I believe David Sandhop will be covering for us. CE King, Humble Summer Creek, both of those teams undefeated on the northeast side of Houston. I've mentioned CE King as another one of my sleepers. So, and
nice little DN matchup there too.
Be Dylan Spencer against Kelvin Banks. It should be a fun one to watch. Go head to head all night. All right. I forget what week are we going into, Jason? It's all running together already. Week 5.
Week 6.
Week 5 or week 6? I can't remember.
Something like that.
But we'll get it straight when we get back together next week, and we'll preview next week's slate of games and recap where we're going this week. That's the TexAgs High School Football Show. For Jason Howell, I'm Ryan Brauninger. Thanks for tuning in.